John. This was the custom. This was the tradition. And what I'm trying to say is, these were not the best kind of pots. These were not the cleanest of things. It was sort of like saying, go get the dirty pots out in the backyard, bring them in. And so for them to do this was like, all right. in a way, they were risking themselves. They were just doing what they were told, but they were thinking to themselves, what is going on here? It would have been easy for any one of them to say, no way, Jose. I didn't get paid for this. If the governor sees us doing, well, we ain't going to put water. They're probably thinking to themselves their own thoughts. Well, he wants us to get water. He wants us to wash these pots. That's what he's wanting to use these for something. I don't know what. But he's wanting us to wash these pots out. That's why we're putting the water. It never crossed their minds. Jesus never said anything to imply what he was going to do. And it would have never crossed their minds for what happened to happen. But you know what they did? Well, they were told. See, we get this idea in our heads that God has to explain things to us. That he has to make it clear for us so that we understand exactly why we have to go through a pandemic and why we have to move the wedding date because of a virus and why we have to. No, he doesn't. God is in control and God tells us what to do and then we just do it. God says a lot of things in his word that may not make sense to us, but we don't have to understand the command to obey it. We are to obey anyway. And if we fail to fill our roles, then we do not receive the blessing. You understand that if these men had said, I don't work for you, or they said, well, who's this guy? I mean, here, we're supposed to get paid by this person, and now she's telling us to listen to this guy? We don't even know. Or if they thought, what, these are heavy pots, and if they had questions, then guess what? There'd have been no miracle. They had to obey. They had to fill their roles in order to fill these pots. And you and I have roles to fill. God has given us positions in our life. God has given us gifts and talents. And God says, you have a role to fill. And I've told you what to do. And if you want to see your children grow in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, if you want to see them one day be blessed, if you want to see your prayers answered, if you want to see these things happen, you've got to fill your role. You've got to fill the pots. You've got to do the tough tasks. And you've got to do things that you don't understand why you have to do, why you have to go through. All you've got to do is what Jesus tells you to do. Then there'll be a miracle. Then there'll be a blessing. But we don't have an explanation beforehand. And so we see a wedding reception, a wise direction, and then a wondrous transformation. Jesus turned the water into wine. Now, when did it happen? At what point? In the pouring in, the pouring out, while it was still in there? I like what John Wesley said. John Wesley said that Jesus looked at the water and it blushed and turned the wine. We don't know how that happened. Did he wave his hands over it? Did he speak something under his breath? We don't have it recorded what he says. We know in other miracles he touched things. But sometimes in other miracles he spoke and things happened miles and miles away. We don't know how it happened. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know whether they were holding the pot while it was in the pouring process. We don't know at what point it turned into wine, but we know that it did. Oh, yes, it turned into the very best of wine. A fellow was at a barber shop one time. And he was sitting there, and there was a guy in the chair, and he was just one of these blowhards, like to talk and hear himself talk, and the barber was just kind of cutting his hair. And this fellow sitting in the chair was